Hello, I'm Wes the Explosion. This is the Backlog, and I have my new PC, but I haven't gotten it set up just yet. But, to make up for that, here's a big fat Pokemon review. When the original Gen 1 Pokemon games came out, you could only play against each other by standing right next to the other person within range of a 3-foot cord, and if anybody wanted to spectate, they had to look over one of the player's shoulders. Good luck doing that with your unlighted screen. Pokemon Stadium changed that by bringing the action to a bigger screen and increasing the hype. There was nothing more fun than gathering around the N64, busting out the pizza, chips, soda, and our favorite level 100 monsters and seeing whose pet could hit the hardest. Things got so wild that sometimes the cops were even called. All that said, it didn't add much to the actual gameplay, just being the very basic battling without the story and having one extra mode where you played a small collection of minigames. Fun, but not $60 fun. The second Stadium game for Gen 2 was similar fare, with just a different set of minigames, but when we got to Gen 3, things got crazy. Pokemon Coliseum for the Nintendo GameCube had the same basic bring your Game Boy monsters and fight battle mode, but it also included its own original story. They brought this front and center, making it not only the default selection on the main menu screen, but also making it take up a good bit of the focus of the box art, with the 3 legendary beasts you encounter taking up a good chunk of the artwork, and a faded image of the main character looming over everything. Sure, Kyogre and Groudon are there too, but I think that the box legendaries are legally obligated to be on any Gen 3 box art. So, the story for this game is that you play as Wes. I actually was not aware that this was the default name until I was looking up info for the summary here, but I was going to call him that anyway, so that's pretty dope. He is a member of the game's evil group, Team Snag'em. Or was a member, until in the opening cutscene he blows up their base and steals a piece of equipment that can snatch Pokemon, allowing you to catch Pokemon that already have owners. After a brief respite at a diner where you get a bit of a tutorial, you head into one of the game's main towns where you rescue a girl named Rui or Yuki or whatever you change your name to. She has the ability to see which Mon are actual Shadow Pokemon, which are Pokemon that have been corrupted to make them more powerful. The two decide to team up and rescue all of the Shadow Pokemon and open their closed-off hearts. I kinda love this. It strikes me as the perfect game for a Pokemon fan of a certain age. Maybe they feel that the mainline games are too cutesy and friendly, but here's a darker game, with a more serious story and edgier look. You're playing as an ex-member of the game's evil team, trying to go straight and using his illicit skills for good. And may I just say, Team Snag'em? That name is so on the nose, it would only be more appropriate if they were called Team Steal Your Stuff. It's great. And snatching Pokemon is something I think most kids playing the game had thought would be cool for pretty much ever. Overall, it's something that older kids or younger teens will consider cool and are able to take seriously, whereas adult fans will find it somewhat silly and goofy, but in a way that you can't help but be charmed by. The game itself also seems to be an odd hodgepodge of different elements, with the basic Pokemon themselves being recognizable, but with the people looking more like Yu-Gi-Oh!, sometimes even Final Fantasy characters. Some of the music sounding like it's from Battle Network or later Mega Man X games, and even a jingle that sounds like it would fit in better in a Legend of Zelda title. The gameplay itself should be familiar to those who have played other Pokemon games, the unique point being that double battles are the standard here. Each side throws out 2 Pokemon, picking a move for each at the beginning of the turn, which are then carried out in the order of the fastest speed stat, and this continues until one side is left with no remaining usable Pokemon. To this end, they start you out with an Espeon and an Umbreon, which are pretty interesting choices for starters. The added component is Shadow Pokemon, which, as the only catchable Pokemon in the game, you probably want to catch. To do so, you need to prioritize between weakening them without knocking them out, throwing out Pokeballs, managing your own team, and dealing with the rest of the opponent's Pokemon. There are 48 Shadow Pokemon, so, with your 2 starters, that gives you up to 50 to choose from. This makes things interesting because there are some unique choices in the mix. Sure, you can use a legendary beast, and near endgame you get some pseudo-legendaries, but until then you'll have to supplement your evolutions with things like Quillfish, Magcargo, or Skiploom. I think a lot of the Pokemon they choose to include were due to necessity. When Gen 2 came out, you could transfer Pokemon exclusive to Gen 1 up with your link cable, but between 2 and 3 this option wasn't available. However, you can transfer between Game Boy Advance and GameCube apparently, so whatever you can catch here can go into your mainline games. This gave a unique opportunity to bring back some Pokemon that there was no way to get in-game anymore other than hacking. Thus why Pokemon like Smeargle and Ursaring are some of the choices that you have here. The Shadow Pokemon themselves require a lot of work to get back to normal. They start out with one move, Shadow Rush, which is not affected by type and has recoil damage like Takedown. If you use this move too much, they enter Hyper Mode, where they have an increased chance of landing a critical hit, but also won't let you use items on them and may even take a swipe at you instead. Don't worry, there is no actual downside to this, they'd only waste your turn. They remain at a static level until you purify them. They have a bar of 5 blocks that functions kind of like an experience bar that you have to clear in order to do this. As you clear out the blocks, you get certain benefits to reward these milestones, such as more attacks, revealing the Pokemon's nature, and accumulating experience points that are awarded once the Pokemon is fully purified. There are several ways to do this, like battling, calling them out of Hyper Mode, walking with them in the party, letting the daycare raise them, or giving them a massage with scents that you can buy. These methods vary in effectiveness depending on the Pokemon's nature, which there are guides for, but given that you can't even see this until partway through the process, it can make things a little tricky. Once the bar is clear, you take the Pokemon to this one monument in one of the towns and complete the process. There's also one item that there are 3 of in the game that you can use to purify a Pokemon no matter how much is left in their darkness bar. Early on, I would purify by battling, but this can take a long time, especially if it just doesn't gel well with their nature. With their limited movesets, inability to level up, and them being temperamental, further dragging it out, I switched to leaving one Pokemon in the daycare, then running with a full team of Shadow Pokemon around the purification statue until it started to glow. This is all kind of reminiscent of breeding Pokemon for shinies in the mainline game, so it was nothing new. I just wish I had a bike here too. When doing this near the end of the game, with not a lot I needed to buy, I also used a lot of the scents to speed things along. Other things worth mentioning about the gameplay is how grinding works. Normally in a Pokemon game, you can just find a patch of grass and run around fighting wild Pokemon until you get enough experience. Here though, there are no wild Pokemon, only trainers. Because of this, every time you re-enter an area, the battles reset so that you can refight trainers and grind up levels, though this also can make it awkward to travel through an area again. Also, as you can probably guess, there are no routes in this game. There is a region map where you can select where you want to go and then watch a small scene where you travel on your weird diesel hover bike thing while the area loads in. Now, here's something that's pretty important to bring up. This game is harder than most other Pokemon games. You may remember that I beat Pokemon Blue not too long ago with a team that was 10 to 20 levels under the endgame trainers, and some of mine weren't even fully evolved. That was a good challenge, but I think this one might have been tougher. One of the main reasons is the limited choice you have in Pokemon. Yeah, you can get some good stuff later on, but that's later on. And the good stuff is harder to catch. Since TMs are sparse and there is no move tutor, your movesets are also limited. That means that for a good portion of this game, you're stuck with very okay Pokemon with very okay attacks. Sure, at a certain point you can transfer Pokemon from Ruby or Sapphire, but that is also a late development. I already transferred my Goodmon from that game to Diamond, and I wouldn't want to take the easy way out anyway. Then there's dealing with temperamental Shadow Pokemon on your team, which we've already gone over, as well as just catching the suckers. I put this game down for a long while because when the guy with Entei showed up, I only had a limited number of, at best, Great Balls, and nothing good to go up against him with, so I shelved this because I didn't want to miss out on the capture. I found out later that I would get another chance at it, but at the time it felt like I was set up by the game for failure. Also, since it's a double battle, new Pokemon are constantly coming out, and unlike the single battles in the main game, you don't get the option to just freely switch out to whatever's good against what's coming out. In addition, unlike most Pokemon games where you and the AI just have quick battles that are essentially just tests of strength and memorizing the type chart, here a lot of the trainers have wicked strategies. In the main story, I just typically try to knock out my opponents, but here they were hitting me with status effects, using Confusion and Attract, because I guess somebody went around just handing out the TMs for that move, and building their stats. I had to play more long game and use a bit more thought than in the normal child-oriented entries in the series. Also, the game cheats. Literally. Have you ever played Pokemon or a similar game and it seemed like you made a move that no one would have any reason to think you'd make, yet the AI countered you perfectly? Perhaps you switch Pokemon and get hit with a move that's super effective to the new Mon, but not the one you just switched out? To do that would require either an amazing read, or for the opponent not to choose their move at the beginning of the turn, but in real time, right before the move needed to come out. While I can't speak for any other titles in the series, this game absolutely does that. I know it sounds whiny and like just an excuse, but I swear it's true. Hear me out. I was fighting a guy, both of us down to our last Pokemon. Me an Ampharos, him a Heracross. My Ampharos was slower than him and would fate in another hit. If I healed Ampharos, he would immediately get knocked down to the same level of HP. There was no winning, unless I revived something that could take out the Heracross in one hit. I chose to revive Espeon, whom I was sure was faster than Heracross and would be able to end in one. I did consider that Heracross could also end him in one, but since Espeon was not out at the beginning of the turn, they shouldn't have had the option to attack, unless he did a hit everything move. And you know what happened? Heracross knocked out Espeon with Mega Horn. I tested it out later to make sure, but you can't select a Pokemon that isn't there, just in case they pull what I did. The CPU cheated. It either selected an option that wasn't there, or it chose its move mid-turn rather than the start. This was on Trainer 9 in a 10-person challenge, which I then had to start from the beginning, so I was mad at the time. However, I did learn something major from the experience, and to be honest, while this might bug me a bit more in other games, since this title is pretty much just a harder version of a regular Pokemon game, I kinda like the extra challenge of having to take into account that the computer has an extra edge on me. It just bears discussing. So, to consider this game done, I wanted to accomplish 3 things. The first is, obviously, beat the main story. The second, slightly less obvious but still pretty obvious, beat the postgame. Both are, as previously discussed, pretty much just a harder version of mainline Pokemon story mode. The third was to beat this game's version of the Pokemon League Mount Battle, where there are 100 trainers to fight. You challenge them in sets of 10 trainers in a row for 10 rounds of 10. This is oftentimes the best place to grind. They start you out with opponents so weak that you could be brain dead and take them out, then gradually build up to a real challenge. Opponent 89 was the first person I fought in the game able to wipe my whole team. And since you heal between each battle, it was an actual full wipe. I had 2 sub-goals that I initially wasn't going to do, but I managed to find the time. First was to fully evolve all my Pokemon. This was just for my own satisfaction. The second was to catch and purify all Shadow Pokemon. At first I didn't care, but then I read that you could get a Ho-Oh if you did, so I went for it. Then I found out that the final requirement for this was to clear the 100 trainers of Mount Battle in another battle mode, which it seemed like too much, so I skipped it. I did save all the Shadow Pokemon and open their hearts, though. So here are my general thoughts. This game is overall great. It's Pokemon with a twist, making double battles the standard and replacing random encounters in grass and catching to trainer battles with snatching. It also ups the challenge a fair bit, which the easiness of the series has been something people have complained about for a while, with many having to make up their own challenges to get any fun out of the games. It also offers a different visual look and sound, further upping the uniqueness of the game. Now for the downsides. This Pokemon game's combat takes the longest out of any I think I've ever played. Part of this is just because with double battles, you need 4 Pokemon to go every turn rather than just 2. However, the bigger issue is the battle animations. On handhelds, when you attack, there is one animation, when the user attacks, and then each affected health bar drains. Here, there's an animation for when the move is used, then another for every Pokemon affected, followed by the health drop. This can be brutal. Normally I like having the animations on, but here I went to turn them off, only to find out I could not. Just a toggle for that, or having shorter or combined animations would help this tremendously. The other issue is the trainer rematches. I get that this needs to happen due to there being no random encounter areas to grind in, but it makes it really awkward to travel through past areas and having to fight people again. I think the best way to fix this would be to make battles mandatory when they first see you on first encounter, and then make it so that you can rematch people by talking to them again through subsequent trips. Everything else I could say would be a nitpick, so we'll leave it at just those 2 major issues. My final recommendation is twofold. If you're inexperienced with Pokemon and looking into getting into the series, don't start here. This game will slap you around, and just catching other Pokemon to fill out your team may be too high of a hurdle mid-battle. However, if you're a veteran and are looking for a unique or more challenging Pokemon game, this is absolutely the game for you. You might have trouble finding a copy of the game and something to play it on, though. If you have to turn to alternate methods to play it, not that I'm advocating that, I would further recommend looking for a mod that doubles the speed at which the game's played. It's kind of a shame they don't make stadium-style games anymore, so that we'll never get to see where this sort of game could have gone. Except for the one time they did, which is also on my list. I look forward to seeing if they change or improve anything, but I think I'll take a break from Pokemon for now. So wow, we did it. We finally did it. We cleared off an RPG, a JRPG no less. Sure, with this being a Pokemon game, it wasn't supposed to take as long. I think it has an average playtime of 25 hours, but with the extra stuff I did, I think I clocked in at an extra 10, so it's significant. That was almost a 40-hour game. But anyway, that'll do it for this week. Over the next week, I gotta set up my new PC and figure out what sort of editing software I need to load onto it, so if anybody has any suggestions, please pass them forward. For right now, though, thanks for watching, maybe subscribe if you enjoy this sort of thing, and I'll see you next week.